a limited amount of space. I do think you need to take some
Limited
risk
amount
and
of money,
chances.
yeah.
But I gave this publisher easily a year and a half to see if I could sell some of their product over the year. I don't stock it. So they actually have a book that came out about a month ago that is now speculators are trying to find. And I didn't order it. Right. And so now I'm late on the train of ordering this book that people seem to want that's probably going to die down by the time it gets around. So now I'm back and like, well, maybe I should consider the publisher now has a hit again. Maybe I should consider putting some of their books back in. So it's a conversation you constantly have when you're stocking your store.
But it's your choice.
Correct.
You are not betrothed to everyone that says... now, does somebody like with the pull of DC, can they ever look at you and say you have to sell this?
No.
They don't have any titles like that where you have to start.
Well, we're doing that right now. We're doing that now right now. Bad Idea. Bad Idea is requiring.
Really?
You have to buy whatever you first bought. You have to buy that many copies of the remaining issues.
Yeah, and agree to buy their catalog, but they're only limiting themselves to like 200 stores nationwide. So it's actually a good deal.
But you've also had artists, writers, whatever, that you've disagreed with their political stances or personal stances, and you've decided not to carry them as well, haven't you?
There are a couple of people that I will not stock in the store. Yes, that is true.
So let's go back to the My Pillow guy. The argument of you can't pull products. It's the insanity that I think that we've allowed capitalism and its intent and message to get out of control. It is not simply you create a product, you get to sell it and make money. That's not how it should ever work.
Well, and this is something else. Cause I'm gonna jump into this just a little bit. I know it's gonna be a political hot topic. To move into the idea of boycotts, hashtag / cancel culture.
Yeah.
Now,
Can we call it consequence culture?
Consequence culture is
That's what
the
it
next
is.
better way
Because
of doing
that's
it
what it
because
is.
consumers have made choices
all the time.
for
Absolutely.
100 years to decide not to buy a product because of its political connection, because of its environmental effects, because of this or whatever. We've had boycotts are not something new.
I mean, the Republicans just canceled Liz Cheney.
Right, exactly.
I mean, but no cancel culture.
But it cancel culture is like when the word political correctness became an evil word and people were using that as throwing that around. Cancel culture isn't a thing. Cancel culture is just a definition
people holding responsible for their words or actions,
or deciding not to participate in whatever that is.
Yeah.
I mean, we had that with Joss Whedon, right? He's built kind of this history of terrible things, and so people are making a conscious choice to not support his
him.
work and
Yeah.
his things like that. Some of his
Right.
actors are coming out against him. That's not canceling Joss Whedon. That's consumers making a choice and decision,
Right.
and probably talking about it. And that conversation is what people are calling cancel culture.
Well, okay. To that point, I had that experience with the Woody Allen thing when I finally watched that documentary that was on HBO. Did you either of you
I know
watch
what you're
that?
talking about, but I haven't watched it because.
So I grew up, perfectly of the era that I loved Woody Allen, loved him. And I officially, and like this really hurts Woody Allen, but I needed it for my own sanity. On my digital movie collection, I deleted every one of his movies off because I was like, even though I technically can bring them back, I was like, I don't want to see them.
But then,
because
when you get into separating the artist from the art,
and I did think about that, Sean, because I thought, okay, who's another? I love Bruce Springsteen. If something came out with Bruce, I don't know how I can rip that from my soul because I've loved it since I was a kid. But at the same time, I have to make decisions in my life for what make it correct, and that's my decision. Now, I do wonder about this because before coming over today, I was reading Variety, and they were talking about some guy's been cast in the Godfather project that Armie Hammer was going to be into because of the problems surrounding him with rape allegations. Now, rape, I probably reached for the wrong one to ask this question of, but with this, as we call it, consequence culture. At which point can you look at a person, let's say Joss Whedon, let's go back to him. Is there anything Joss Whedon could ever do to
redeem himself?
Because I do believe in that, Richard, if you do something that hurts me, and if you come to me and say, that was never, you know what, I've learned this, then I'm going to be in that place eventually. And if I don't forgive you, I can never expect forgiveness to come back to me. That's the way I operate my life. Somebody comes and says, I fucked up. Okay, you're human. Let's go. Are we going to allow public figures that fuck up? And don't jump towards Hitler, because Hitler is the one public figure. I think everybody
we go to
looks
extremes. Yeah.
But let's look at Joss Whedon, how horrible he was, and the things he even said about the writer's room on and on Buffy, where he said the only way to make a writer any good, especially a woman, is to berate them and tear them apart. And I'm like,
What? I would. Well, that's where you want to actually reach out to Jane Espenson, one of his head writers for Buffy and Angel, and kind of talk to her. Like, did you have this kind of experience? What was that experience? I do think redemption is a possibility, but in the same way that you've decided Woody Allen to pull Woody Allen off your shelf, I think everybody makes different decisions.
I agree with you.
Right? Everybody makes very, very different decisions about whether they can support somebody, whether they can see the actor versus the work, or the work versus the controversy. There are actors that I don't care to watch for because they're always themselves. They didn't do anything politically wrong. I just don't feel like they ever play any different characters, and so I just discount everything that they do. I'm like, I can't watch that.
Samuel Jackson.
It's always the same person.
Every time he's either Nick Fury or Mace Windu, and it's the exact same. I'm like, okay, yeah.
But I mean, you can appreciate that. But there are people that I don't take seriously because of that same thing. I don't know. It's everybody has to make a personal choice. Do I get upset at my gay friends that eat at Chick-fil-A? Sure. Do I try and have a conversation with them? Not really, but I have before, and I found that really didn't go anywhere. So I've just kind of let it go.
But I think that's part of the human condition too. Let's use Chick-fil-A as an example. That my principle. Shit, if I drove my daughter's car down here, you would see the back of it. Is now that she's going to see you both. Well, it's all stickers, but it's straight ally. She has a CU Boulder logo, but it's a rainbow flag behind it, and all these things. And that's and I'm proud of that. That's the child I've raised. Of you do not look at a single person on this earth and ever treat them any different than you want to be treated. Now, I think the hypocrisy is that I don't believe I can't stand Hobby Lobby because of that they don't provide birth control for their employees. They also put down gays. But I've walked into Hobby Lobby to buy something when it was the only place I could go. And I think sometimes we're willing to make those excuses that we know are not right.
Yeah, like shopping at Target's not the best thing because they're anti-gay, I believe. And
are they?
No. They had a controversy about a decade ago about a parade.
But I mean, I think that's that weird human thing of that I stand on my principles. You got to make these allowances to do this.
Right.
I'm not perfect. I've done that too.
We all do, and I think we do it in our media and our entertainment as well. We can accept certain types of things. We can accept that maybe the offense wasn't something that we personally found egregious, but maybe a friend of ours did. Yeah. Right.
I'll be honest with you. Since becoming your friend, I turned down Chick-fil-A much more than I ever did in my life, simply because I always found what they did offensive, but I never thought about it. And then as you would say things, I'm like, well, shit. Every time, if I consider him my friend, every time that I spend $1 there, I'm doing something that
actively against him.
Well, even if it's indirectly hurting you, it hurts you. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore.
I mean, we all just make those choices, right? And
we
can't make that choice for somebody else in terms of what they think. I do like this idea of consequence culture versus cancel culture.
I do too, and I'm gonna hashtag this, and we're gonna.
I heard it on TV somewhere. Somebody talking about it. It's not cancel culture; it's consequence culture. You're being held responsible for what you did.
We're just now our community has grown so big that our voices will often sound like a mob.
They will. Well, I think that using something like consequence culture is really good as well, because how many times do I hear people say, yeah, but freedom of speech. Okay, your freedom of speech is not that it keeps you from going to jail when you speak out against your government. It does not mean that somebody who...
You can't just walk into a grocery store and start screaming at people about, I hate gays. Well, no, that's not the First Amendment.
Something's going to come out of that. You're going to have a consequence. What do you expect? It's like if I go shit on a table at a restaurant, I'm going to get thrown out. It's no different. I'm using verbal shitting when I do those kind of things, and you will have a consequence that comes along with it.
It's going back to the mask. I walk into a store, and they want you to have to wear a mask. I have to wear a mask, or I don't get to go into that store.
I don't know that I want to move into this. They have the issue with freedom of speech related to hate speech and or freedom of speech related to you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right?
Actually, you can if there's a fire.
If there's a fire, but I am curious where we're going to go right now because of misinformation with freedom of speech with the intent to mislead. Like there's kind of a point happening now where political pundits and people that have a narrative that they want to push out are intentionally misleading. I'll say it happens everywhere. I'm not going to call any particular party or person or anything out. It happens everywhere. But when you know that you're misleading something, how do we move to the point where we can identify that and say this person is intending to mislead, and therefore, it's not it's not the truth. How do you label something as misleading?
You can't have fact checkers on Facebook. That's infringing on my First Amendment rights.
Yeah, those kinds of things. Yeah.
There was somebody I saw recently, and it was in regard to the internet and the usage of it to spread this misinformation, and they were talking about how to fix the internet, and it was anywhere from build up your bandwidth network and all that, to fix those things. But then it came down to it. It said, for every 10,000 people, hire one person that is an internet librarian. That they said, all we're doing is saying that they are going to go in and they're going to ask for fact checks on things like that. And you're going to give it weight. You're not going to eliminate it. It's still there, but they would be assigned by the government to give it weight. And it was simply, so then whenever it returns on algorithms, it almost has to pull from it. And I thought, why the fuck can't we do that? I'm not taking away your ability to read it.
Find it.
I'm just saying that, by the way, this is much more fringe and we can't find the things to prove what they're talking about. Okay.
Also, Facebook / Twitter / whatever / YouTube are private companies, and they have their own terms of services. And if you don't like it, get the fuck off and make your own service.
I mean, that's always been the thing about it too. If you don't like what I'm doing, get out. And now suddenly, when everybody's like, "Get out," they're like, "Well, you can't do this."
When you got Florida, when you got Florida saying, "Hey, governments or companies or people, and they have their own rights," but no, you can't kick people off your own services. You can't have your own rights, or otherwise, we're going to make you pay money for doing stuff in our state.
Yeah, they did there is kind of this idea of making corporations people that have kind of come back to bite people in the ass. Actually, now they have rights.
I hate people. Let's get down to it.
I actually texted that to my husband yesterday. I hate people. It was probably right after the guy that helped is awesome.
I hate people. I try my best not to look at people and think, what the fuck? But, it all comes down to, again, let's quit pointing fingers at people when they aren't the same as me, and let's quit pointing fingers back at ourselves and saying, I'm the only one with an opinion. Listen, talk to each other. And if we would all do a little bit of that, maybe this shit could kind of go and go away.
Yeah.
All right. Boy, that was an interesting. I don't think there was much pop culture talk. That may be our first almost no pop culture talk in between.
We'll brighten it up next time, guys.
Yay! Right. All right, everyone have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
I don't know why I said weekend. Weekend.
Welcome to the weekend.
Christopher, weekend.